Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special Christmas episode of the Geek Cause podcast.
Yay! Christmas!
And on this special Christmas episode, we have a topic that I'm sure a lot of people will enjoy.
Oh, yeah.
The main theme of it is Star Wars. And we are extremely excited to talk about it. So it's going to be three main topics, and if we somehow get sidetracked off into smaller stuff, we will.
More than likely will.
You know us.
Yeah.
But it's The Mandalorian, the Star Wars TV show on Disney+, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, the game that came out a few months ago by Respawn, right?
Yeah.
And then Star Wars Rise of Skywalker.
Ooh.
Which just came out.
Effect here.
Which just came out 3 days ago now, was it? Friday?
Friday, yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about all that stuff. Be forewarned. We are not going to watch ourselves for spoilers. We're not going to say we're going to sit there and say maybe every single plot point that happens, but we're going to talk about these things.
We're not going to stop ourselves.
Yes, we're going to... Basically, what this is we're going to talk about kind of what happens, our review, in a way.
Yeah.
More so of a... Should you watch it? Should you play it? Whatever, instead of a grading scale.
Yeah.
And just saying whatever we want about it, and our thoughts, opinions, and what we'd like to see or what we wouldn't like to see, or would like to have changed, anything like that.
Yeah, pretty much everything that you could expect. We're probably going to talk about because we ramble.
And it's going to be Star Wars because Happy Life Day. Yeah, everyone remember the Star Wars Christmas special?
Oh, yeah.
Everyone like that?
This whole podcast is actually just about the Star Wars Christmas special.
So we watched it 37 times in a row just so we could really get the full understanding.
We didn't stop. There was no breaks.
We didn't eat.
it was
we weren't allowed to eat until we finished the movie.
It's like in A Clockwork Orange when he's strapped to the chair and his eyes are held open. It was Star Wars Christmas special.
God. Oh my god.
Yep.
All right. So let's just get right started. We're not gonna talk about we're not gonna go into things as usual. This is a special. So
Reform.
We haven't planned anything. Not that we really do. We don't
really
super
plan
our podcast. We get the topics that we want to talk about, and I think that's
about it. Yeah.
All right. So. Let's start with, Kyle, The Mandalorian. Which I'm assuming most people will be familiar with that are listening to this.
And if they're not familiar with The Mandalorian, they're at least familiar with Baby Yoda.
Yes. So, if you're, not familiar with the show, that's where Baby Yoda comes from, is The Mandalorian. And basically, the best way that I could describe The Mandalorian is a sort of Star Wars Western...
Exactly what I was going to say.
Bounty sort of flavor to it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It's 100% a Western.
I think that's what it's going for, right?
Yeah.
And in all honesty, I think it does that very well.
Oh, super well.
So far, there's been 7 episodes. I haven't seen the latest one. I haven't seen episode 7 yet.
The one that dropped it came out Wednesday. It was supposed to release on Friday, but they released it earlier because they wanted to clash with Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to see it yet. So if we talk about anything related
to
that,
talking about
let's not go to that part because I don't want to. Okay. Everyone else can get spoiled because they have the ability to pause and skip around.
Yeah, you can't pause me.
But I can't pause you.
As much as you wish you could.
Let's leave episode 7 out of it. But aside from that, so overall, what is your thoughts, feelings, and opinions on the show?
I absolutely love it. I don't think the episodes have fluctuated. I wouldn't say quality-wise, but direction-wise.
Yeah.
They've fluctuated because obviously it's a different director nearly every episode.
Right. They're doing it kind of like the Doctor Who sort of style of where you switch the main people of it, right?
Where there's this overarching story, but each episode is its own isolated story.
Mm-hmm.
And every now and again you get a hint of your overarching story.
Yeah. Well, I would say the overarching story is probably a good 30% of what the episode is about, and then the rest of it is about what's going on currently in that
situation. Yeah, that's kind of what I meant.
Yeah.
There's always that back tone of what you know is happening, but then it's but that's constantly going on.
Yes,
this is what's happening now.
There's a constant thing. So let's just give what the backstory of, at least with this season so far, of what the show is about. And basically what it is we have Mando, which I actually don't like that that's his name because it makes no sense, because then what are all the other Mandalorians?
It's not actually his name.
I know it's not, but the thing is that's what he's referred to, right? Because people are just like, oh, he's a Mandalorian, and there's not many of them.
Yeah.
And what I want to know is, like
if you met another one, what would you call it?
Well, like when he was down inside of his like Mandalorian base, like what did they refer to each other as? What did he like say? Because the reason why they just called, like he was just called Mando, is because the way that it made it sound is that the Mandalorians in their like cave system would only go out one at a time.
Yeah.
So that way people wouldn't know if they were different or not.
Yeah.
Or just a guy with different armor.
Are.
Exactly. It could have been like one, or it could have been two. Like you could have probably inferred that it might have been like maybe a few, but you didn't know how many for sure. And so the reason why I assume people call him Mando is because it's a Mandalorian, whatever. Just call me Mando.
Yeah,
that's fine.
Maybe they just call them all Mando.
But overall, I would like to know like if they could. I don't know. I feel like I don't need to. Before I see his face, I'd rather know if he can have an established name, because right now he's Mando to everybody. That's his name in the show. So I want to know.
Yeah.
It kind of I
think it's kind of like Clint Eastwood, the man with no name.
Yes, they're keeping it very
going for that classic
based.
Western vibe,
and that's why you don't see any other Mandalorians. Obviously, it's also because like the purge that happened. But anyways, let's get back on track of what the main story is about. There's basically a Mandalorian who is a bounty hunter. Wow, big surprise!
You never would have guessed.
And if you're not familiar with Mandalorians in the Star Wars lore, they're basically like a group of like very combat oriented people.
Yeah.
And things about them, like they pride their armor a lot. Okay, their armor is very pride. Now in the actual Star Wars lore, in the extended universe, it was delved into more, but in like kind of like the background games and stuff like that, like the games and the comics and stuff like that, you had the Mandalorian lore was kind of delved into, but not as much.
Yeah,
but it looks
like deep.
And it like they definitely, you can tell that with this they added a more tribalistic sort of approach to it, just a little bit extra of a touch to it. But what I've liked is that so far in the show they're fleshing that out, right?
Yeah.
So what you're finding out is that there's this Mandalorian that's a bounty hunter. We don't know why he's so hard pressed on making sure. We knew originally it was because he wanted to provide for his people, right? That's what the thought process is. They do stuff, they make money, they make their own living, and then they can also any extras they provide for their.
It's like they're great warriors, so usually it's
clan
mercenary work or bounty work is what they're good at,
because it's what they're good at.
Easiest way to make money for them.
And so what we see is a Mandalorian that is taking these bounties, and he seems like he's really only cares about getting the job done. He's not necessarily a bad guy, but he's a guy that doesn't have.
He hasn't really picked a side in anything. He's on his own side.
He does what he needs to do.
Anything.
He does what he needs to do, whether it's 100% right or not. But it seems like he tends to go towards trying to avoid like the worst aspects. So if he's going to capture someone, he could shoot them in the face, but he wants to take you alive and have you, do with what you need to do. So basically, the overarching theme of the story is that he goes to take care of a bounty that's apparently worth a lot, and he finds that this takes place. There's a lot to talk about for people that don't know. So I'm trying to like just round it up real quick. It takes place a little bit after the Empire is destroyed. Yeah. So there's no more Empire really, but he meets up with little scraggle of like Empire that's still there.
Yeah, like the remnants of it.
And that is they're looking for basically a mark that they have, and they want Mando to find him. They don't care if it's dead. They'd prefer it alive, but they don't care if it's dead. And they offer him basically the metal that his people's armor is made out of, which is Beskar metal. And it's like it can withstand blaster bolts. It can withstand like getting hit by like bladed weapons. It's very, very, very strong armor. And
listen, I don't know if they've confirmed it for current canon, but I'm pretty sure in Legends it was lightsaber resistant as well, wasn't it? Like it wasn't impenetrable, but it could.
No. It's something like if it was like skimmed off the side, it could take
kind of like a bulletproof vest.
Yeah,
it's like it can stop a bullet, but it can't stop 5 of them directly at the same spot.
Yeah. It's something, I think, like, even a little bit less than that, but, like, it can prevent you from basically getting your arm chopped off.
Yeah.
I think is how it's supposed to be, or, like...
You can survive a slash, not a stab.
Yes. Well, I mean, even if you're playing Fallen Order, it's funny because they're, like, if you listen to some of the troops, like, the Empire troops, they say, like, one of them, I heard him say, listen, I know that if you have proper aim, you can actually take out a Mandalorian's armor with one shot. So, like, basically, like, showing in that their armor is tough, but there is a way that if you hit it in a right spot...
Like any armor, it has to be forward, so it has that weak spot from tempering.
So, basically what it is you have all this armor that he can get, or potential armor for his clan, from these Empire guys, and he's like, whatever, I don't care, I'll do it, fine. He goes through this trials, tribulations, gets to where he needs to be, and he opens it up, and it's basically Baby Yoda.
Yeah.
So a baby's and that's his mark. And
well, in saying that, it's a baby, it's 50 years old, but it's still technically it's a baby for Yoda's species.
Yes, which they still haven't said what Yoda species is. It's just called the Yoda species right now. So he takes it, he delivers it, he starts to regret what he's doing because of realizing that he gave away this child that was, like, kind of befriending him and also helped him in a way. So he basically, like, feels bad, says fuck it, goes back, sees that they're basically gonna torture it and kill it, torture it, do whatever that they need to, and he says fuck that, kills people in there, fucks everyone up, and then takes Baby Yoda and dips. Yeah,
and pretty much then the Bounty Guild are like, you messed up, you broke the rules, now we're pretty much going to put a mark on you, everyone's going to be hunting you because we want the baby back.
Right, and that causes shit to happen before he can even get off planet, but then we see a bunch of crazy shit happen. And
the show, really, it's like, oh, he goes somewhere, then there's more bounty hunters that come for him, and then a bunch of crazy shit happens.
Yeah, I think, and so basically what it seems like is, that's why we say it's like a Western, because it's like, imagine a sort of, they wouldn't be called a bounty hunter, I guess they could have in some of them, but it'd been like a rogue, a guy that goes around, and he's not like a sheriff, and he's not a bad guy, but he, like, brings certain people in, or stops people from being, like, doing certain things, but he does it for the money. So it's like if you took the road in KOTOR, where you were... like, you did things to help people, but you always asked for the extra credits at the end of it. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean.
So he's seeming like he's going more towards the good side right now, though. Yeah. Because he's kind of understanding what it's like to have something in his life other than himself to care about. Himself and his clan, rather. Yeah. And he sees that there's more to things. And, I don't know. The show is just... It's hitting all the right parts. The funny, the seriousness, the action.
Action's in it really good.
So the action is done
That's what I was
really
worried about the most. So it's like, oh, is it going to be this jumpy, overrated, just shooty? Yeah. It's like, no, it's actually creative. And each one, he's like using the same tools, but it changes from situation to situation.
How did you feel about the, I think it was the last one that I saw, I think it was 6 on the prison planet? The prison station? Yeah. Like, and when he went there...
Bill Burr.
Yeah, with Bill Burr. Who, he does good for what he does. He's so much of an asshole, it bothers me sometimes, but he plays an asshole so good because of that.
Because he is an asshole.
Yeah.
He knows exactly how to be an asshole.
And so, it, like, works so well. And, yeah, like, how did you feel about that episode, like, of him, like, going through and, like, having those troubles, but being able to overcome all of it?
I thought it was a very fun episode. I thought it was a slow burn the whole way through it. And then it got to the point where it's like, okay, shit's going down now. Yeah. And then suddenly it turns into a horror movie.
Yeah, it was 80% like just bullshitting, right? Of like slowness, like building up to what it was going to, and you're just like, okay, you're going through this, and like it was good, but like it wasn't like there was like any action or anything to it, but it was just in terms of progressing the story, you could tell it was like, man, they're really hitting home that they're like, you know, doing this, talking about this, and they get through it, and then all of a sudden, boom, everything hits the fan, and it just turns into a different sort of
0 to
episode.
60.
such a good episode, that last one, and it really shows
full
you
of cameos as well.
Yeah, it was.
It's like all the X-Wing pilots were all like production people. They were directors and stuff like that, and the executive producers. Like the girl one was...
That's funny.
Deborah, whatever her name is. She's become famous because she's the first woman to ever direct anything Star Wars related.
Oh.
And it was an episode of Mandalorian.
That's cool. Yeah. Was it that episode? Or what episode was it?
I think it was one of the episodes before it.
I think
it was the one before it or the one before that.
All the episodes so far have been good. I would say the least good episode was the second one had its issues, but it was still good.
Yeah.
Only because the only reason I say it has issues is because basically the premise of that episode was the second one was where he went to a planet, right, and they needed help with these guys that were there, and so him and this other bounty hunter basically train up this village to fight back, and that's like verbatim the plot line of like several different westerns, and
it was an episode of Clone Wars as well.
Yeah,
like it was like 1-for-1 an episode of Clone Wars.
So it's very, but like, see, I like that because like obviously Clone Wars was good.
Yeah,
it's a great show. Great. So I think that they overall, even with that, like, you know, me saying that it was the weakest, that was only weak because it was something that we had seen before.
Yeah.
But in terms of what it was good. That's like saying I'm trying to think of what it is. Like that's like saying KOTOR 2 was weak because you're comparing it to the first one.
Yeah.
But if you had never played the first one, and that's what a lot of people say, right? Is that KOTOR 2 isn't as good as 1. But then you play 2 and you're like, this is actually a great game. And if 1 didn't exist, it would have been an amazing game.
Yeah.
But because 1 exists, it's
when you're comparing things like that, it's like, well, of course it's going to be different. It doesn't mean it's bad though.
No.
It's not peaked as good as the other guy, but it's still damn close.
Yeah. So tell me, what things in this show do you think that kind of like set it out and set it apart and are making it like do as good as it is?
So it's the Star Wars universe. So I think,
which everybody's been wanting more of without it having to be like the main story, because they erased all Star Wars.
That's what I was going to say. It's like they got rid of all of like the old Legends stuff when Disney bought them. And it's like, we're starting fresh.
Yeah, no old Legends, no extended universe.
Yeah. So getting a show like this, it's their chance to build the world outside of all the Jedi stuff. It's like they're steadily building that with every comic and book and movie they release. More and more Force stuff is built. But when it comes to different races and species and what happened after events, very little. And I feel like they're using this as like their catalyst to build their universe back up again, give it that meat that it had before Disney got in.
Yeah, I'd say that that's the cool part too, is Star Wars, the best part about it has always been the universe, right?
Yeah.
Everything else about it, it's a fantasy, right? People think it's like some sort of sci-fi thing. It's actually
Star Wars is fantasy. Star Trek is sci-fi.
And so you have this fantasy space show, right?
Yeah.
And you have this universe that's amazing, and people always have wanted to see that expanded, and every time it does great. The thing is like, if you think about anything that's failed related to Star Wars, the reason, except for the Christmas special, the reason it's failed or not done as good or hasn't been like successful was never because of like the world that it created. It was always because of it lacked punch somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
Even with like the last 3 movies, with people's criticisms of it, no one said that the worlds that were built were bad, right? People's biggest criticism was the characters, which I think makes sense why you are upset about like something, but I don't think that that's fair to say that everything is a failure about a movie or whatever because you have characters that you don't like or you don't think that
it's like, oh, I don't like this character, even just that actor. It's like, but that doesn't affect it overall, though.
No,
that's your own personal opinion towards that individual thing.
A movie,
what about the rest of it?
A movie and a game, movies and games are all about who's acting in it, what the writing's like, what the music is like, what the gameplay, if it's a game, is like, or what the sort of pacing is in terms of stuff like that. And that works with the movie as well. Except for in the movie, it's more like what the cinematography's like.
Yeah.
And you have like all these pieces to it. And I think the reason why people are so happy about this new Star Wars stuff that's coming out, like or hate whatever it is, because if you think that Disney is making it too politically correct or whatever, which I legitimately, other than the fact that there's more females and there is actually black people that exist in this universe now, other than the fact that that's a thing. Name one thing that's happened that screams like people are force-feeding you some sort of politically correct agenda.
It makes no sense.
I've never felt it. If you think seeing a woman or seeing a person of color is politically correct...
It's like, wait, the main character is a woman? They're forcing an agenda here. It's like, no.
No.
They've just cast a
They're doing something different, considering the last 6 movies had the main role be a man. That's literally all it is. So, I think when it comes to this stuff, you're right. You're 100% right. They're adding more to it, right? And the world is great. And I think that's why The Mandalorian is doing so good.
Yeah.
Is because they're expanding more on the universe, but now they're doing it even more so from a non-Jedi perspective.
Yeah.
Everyone loves Jedis, right?
Oh, everyone.
And we would all like to have all of the resources on Jedi and see even more about it. That's not the thing that's an issue, but you want to have something else as well.
Yeah.
So that way you can see what it's like from the other angle.
And the thing is, they could have chosen a multitude of different ways to do a show like this. They could have been like, oh, here's a Han Solo type, smuggler, and we're going to learn about the crime world.
Which they were going to.
They were going to do.
Or were they going to, and it got canceled, or they still plan on it, but it's in the future now? It's been pushed back.
I think it's a future thing. And that'll still work really well. Yeah. You can expand on, what happened to the Hutts after Jabba died. Mm-hmm. They were a big crime syndicate. But they instead, we're going with the Mandalorians. Yeah. Why? Because who is, excluding the main trio, or foursome, of the original trilogy, who was the most favourite character? Boba Fett. He barely spoke, he barely had any screen time, and he's the fan favourite.
I think the reason, too, why I like that...
Perfect choice.
The reason why I like that as well is that the fact that while it's about a bounty hunter, it's not just about a bounty hunter.
Yeah.
Because then it'd have been like having Han Solo, a smuggler thing.
It just would have been the same thing every episode.
But worse, because... with smuggling, you can look at it and say oh, it'll be like Firefly, right?
Yeah.
But when you have a bounty hunter, and that's all it is, and there's no other overarching main point to it, you just have some guy that you don't care about because he's kind of nice, kind of not. But when it comes to the Mandalorians, you know that they have a whole other culture to it. They have a whole respect thing to it. They have a whole sort of
the whole thing of that when you put your helmet on, you don't take it off.
No,
you don't let anyone see your face.
And it's great because they're expanding, too, on a race that we've always... race, a group of people, a way of life, whatever you want to say it.
All three.
They're expanding on it more. And the best part is they're not just taking something that we already have, a ton of knowledge on and just make it... They're taking something that we had some knowledge on.
Yeah.
They're compounding on that knowledge, but they're also adding new things. Now, the thing is if you didn't know about it, if you play the KOTOR games, there was a lot of, civil war and conflict between Mandalorians. Oh, they fought each other a lot, and they fought other people a lot.
They fought everyone, pretty much. And there was the Mandalorian Wars. That was a whole big thing.
And they had a lack of people because of that. They had a lot of lack of followers because they were constantly fighting. Now, instead of just copying that and taking it, and just, reusing it, for this, what they did is they created something, the Purge, pretty much.
Yeah, which is... I think it takes place... It was like Order 66, but for the Mandalorians, pretty much.
Kind of. What it was their home planet, their home base was pretty much saying, let's just... They used the Mandalorians, and then they wiped them out because they thought they'd be a threat.
Yeah.
Because they're too combat-oriented, and they knew that they would fight back.
But if they grew their numbers, they'd be,
It's like
dangerous.
It's like if we were to, in today's society... go kill a group of people that we know have the ability to fight back and do stuff, but we just killed them before they had a chance to do anything, and we just bombarded their land, their country, and just completely wiped it off the map and said, now we don't have to worry about you because you're gone.
And then took all of their precious material and turned it into currency.
Wow, it sounds like America and everywhere else.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, sorry. That's a little too political there.
I was going to say it's more so comparable to, Nazi gold.
Yeah, no, that's true, though.
It's literally what it is. The Beskar is Nazi gold.
And so, I think that's the part that's cool, is it's expanding on stuff, but it's also creating new lore that we're already starting to see trickle into other things, and I'm loving it. Because what they're doing, what Disney's did when they erased all previous extended universe and, lore stuff, is they did that not because they didn't want to be there, but because they can use that as well, and they have used bits of it. But it's so that way when they make something, they can say, we made this, it's canon, this is something that's part of the lore, we can expand upon this now in the future, and no one can question whether it's authenticity or not. You know what I mean? Like, Ben Solo could have never been a thing, right? Because like if you would have had it like from any other sort of point of view, it'd have been a completely different story.
Oh yeah.
But they took that snippet of that,
and it's like, okay, what if we took that and now did something different with it? And it's something where they want to be in control of what, like, everyone thinks it's like something to do with something nefarious, and while probably a lot of it has to do with money issues and stuff like that, but the main thing is they want to be in control of it, so that way they know what's getting put out, so that way they know the story, so that way everyone can know the story the way that they intended it to be known. Right? Yeah, exactly. It's not that hard or complicated, really.
So when it comes to The Mandalorian, I think that it does a really good job of being that sort of that first show that we've had of Star Wars since the animated shows, since Clone Wars, really.
Clone Wars.
And even
Rebels came after, but no one really liked Rebels, did they?
Well, no, that's the thing is like it was really, like, it did really well, but it didn't do as well as Clone Wars still. And I think that this is just another thing to add to that and keep that stuff going, and then create more and more lore out of it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And no matter where Mandalorian goes, you're going to get a great story out of it, and we're going to see so much. And I wouldn't even be surprised if I saw it tie into, like, future games or future movies.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And I think they'll use it as a way to try tie up loose ends from, like, games, movies, books, such like that. Maybe it's like, oh, that wasn't explained. Ah, no bother. We can connect that to The Mandalorian and just show you there.
Yeah.
It's, like, a big thing that I'm convinced they're doing from, like, 2 seconds of a sound clip. Is, I can't remember which episode it was, the one with the sharpshooter bounty. The end, the guy who walks up to her body.
Yeah.
He jingles. That's the same sound Boba Fett made when he walked in the original trilogy.
You think that?
It's like the sound of spurs.
Yeah, and then there's Boots in another episode, so you think that they're setting up Boba Fett.
Because where were they? They're on Tatooine. And where was the last time we seen him? In the Sarlacc pit. And in Old Legends, he escaped it like twice.
He escaped it twice.
Yeah, he got out of it, went hooked up with the Jawas, ended up fighting them on their little armored fortress thing, which then ended up crashing back into the Sarlacc pit. And he had to get back out again.
Well, the way that I see it when it comes to this is, if they can create more shows with like this sort of style, not like exactly the same, because this has a very like what it needs to be. And you gotta keep up with this sort of like Western theme, sort of like continuing to go on that. Yeah. I'm curious to see where this Baby Yoda like storyline is going to go. I know they must have an end point. It's
clearly going somewhere.
It has an end point, and I'm sure as they're writing it, they're like switching certain bits up.
Yeah.
But like, we know it has to have an end point, right?
Oh yeah.
So like, when they were going through and they were like, you know, shooting this and going through each point, I know like during that you probably had the different writers and different people that were going through it were like switching it up, and so you can see in each episode how some things kind of, it follows the path, obviously, but you can see where some of them are taking it different places.
Yeah, like style changes and tonal changes, those subtle things, really.
Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking that, you know, I really want to know where this is going to be. Is he going to be a staple in Mando's life, or is it going to be, this is like a seasonal thing?
Yeah, that's a pretty good question. Like, is this something that's going to be constantly there for him, or is this just the catalyst to start his change and to lead to something bigger?
And I know people really want, well, I don't know if people really want, but I know that it seems like they're really like pushing and kind of like trying to push out the fact that he's going to remove his helmet and we're going to see his face.
Yeah.
But I don't want that.
They did cast Pedro Pascal as the Mandalorian. Yeah. They could have cast a stunt guy.
Yeah.
If they were never going to show his face.
Hello? Oh. But I really would prefer if they didn't, to be fair. I feel like it would take, unless they're going to move away from like somehow the Mandalorian roots, or they're going to have it somehow pertain to something, only because of the simple fact that I feel like the minute he shows his face, it's going to take away from this whole theme that they've created, and it's going to take away from the character.
Yeah. I could see that.
I just feel like it's going to...
They'd have to do it in a really specific way to make it where it's like an impactful story moment, but doesn't change everything, but changes enough to kind of set a new role to the show. Yeah. I feel like it's and if it happens, it can't be something where he just forever goes helmetless. Like, you know what I mean? Unless they wouldn't be able to. It's too iconic. And unless the thought process is there becomes a time where like he loses his, like he removes his Mandalorian armor because he feels like he's failed or something like that, and he has to get back into it. But like it's too big of a character piece to just throw away. Yeah, and they did say that his armor was going to change throughout the season. And then he started off with his ratty armor. Yeah, then he got the one bit of Beskar, and then he got the full Beskar. But that happened in like the first 3 episodes. Exactly. But they said it would change throughout the season. So there might be more changes to it coming. Then that'd be interesting because it means he either has to do it himself or he finds another like Mandalorian group that he somehow is able to. Yeah, it's like what happened to the group of Mandalorians that he was chilling with. Well, they had to dip. Yeah, but to where? Exactly. Who knows? Questions. But these are good questions and good answers. I don't know. Overall, what would you say? Would you say you recommended this show? Oh, 100%. If you like Star Wars, you'd love it. If you don't like Star Wars, you'd love it. I'd say that this is... Because it's far enough away from like the Star Wars movies that if you're not a fan of Star Wars, you could still be a fan of this. Because it's different enough. Plus, there's been no sign of... If it's about like the fantasy element and stuff like that, like of crazy amounts of the Force and lightsabers, if for some reason you don't like that, there isn't really a whole lot of that. You have little bits of like certain things, but it's mostly showing, it's like showing it from, imagine Rogue One, right? It's like showing it from that sort of perspective. Yeah, you're seeing things from the other side. Yeah, it's really interesting. And if you don't have Disney Plus, I would almost say it's worth getting at least like once the season's wrapped up to watch the season. Yeah. At least for that. And if not, there's other ways to watch it and you guys can figure that out. But like, it's very, very worthwhile to watch. It's so worth it. So worth it. So worth it. And I guess that's it for The Mandalorian, unless you have anything you wanted to add when related to the show. They are making season 2. Okay, that's already started. It's been confirmed 100%. Production has already started. Okay, great. Jon Favreau posted a picture, I think it was onto his Instagram, a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago at this point, of the Mandalorian helmet. Me and Beck were so surprised that he was the one that was on this. Yeah, he does so much. Yeah, he really does. You do forget that he made the first Iron Man movie. Yeah, he does a lot of great stuff. And all like the live action Disney movies, like The Lion King, Jungle Book, that was all him. Yeah, he's nuts. It's ridiculous. Just he has his fingers and so many powers, and you don't even know it's him. No. Good job, Jon Favreau. And he's a goober too, and he's still able. Yeah, that's the best part. So then we have something to look at the next season to look forward to. But It just makes me wonder how many episodes do you think this season's gonna have? I would have said 8, but now I don't know. I think it's 8 or 9. I think. They haven't said. The next one could be the last one. Yeah. We'll have to see. But moving on from that, if you're done with this part and you don't want to hear spoilers about Fallen Order now... Fallen Order? Yeah, Fallen Order. Star Wars Jedi. It confused me because it's Star Wars... The actual title of this series, I'm assuming is what it's going to be, is Star Wars Jedi. Yeah. Fallen Order. Then there's the colons and then it's Fallen Order. So if they make a sequel, it'll be Star Wars Jedi... something. Just like how it was like Star Wars Jedi Knight blank Dark Forces, you know what I mean? It's like, so I think it's interesting that they're doing that because it's basically like they said almost for the get-go with that, you might as well think we're going to create this into some sort of thing. This is a series. This is a franchise, motherfuckers. We're doing this. Yes, whether it's like Star Wars Jedi blank, or maybe they'll do like Star Wars Stormtrooper blank, or Star Wars Mandalorian, you know what I mean? Do you know what I'd like to see them do? What? Star Wars Jedi, Old Republic. I'd shit myself. I mean, I really like the set of characters that we had in this game, but so I'd love to see them again. But if not, I'm fine with that. If we can get something different, something new. Imagine like that style of like imagine the style of game that
Fallen Order was, but imagine it now with more RPG elements and in the Old Republic sort of world.
Because that's an issue a lot of people have with Disney's current canon, is that they've expanded on a lot of stuff, but all the really cool Old Republic stuff, they haven't confirmed as canon.
No.
So everyone's like...
Even though they have the Old Republic game that still exists, and like I think that really made it like... That was a really shitty hit, was where they create this huge MMO, and then like it does all this stuff, and it's all great, whatever, like that, you know. And it wasn't like crazy good or anything like that, but like over time they've released expansions that has decent story that people have played. But then like since they came out, they've not said that it's been canon or anything like that. Yeah. So then it's kind of like, well, I'm playing something that's not actually related to Star Wars at all.
It's sitting in that kind of limbo.
Where like that's kind of what the main thing about having that, like knowing that things are canon, is that you can say like, this connects to my thing, like how I want it to. It'd be like, you know, imagine playing a game and it's supposed to be based on like the real world, but like there's no connection to it whatsoever. So it like kind of, it dulls that experience a little bit. Whereas like if you're playing a game and you're like, oh yeah, like this is like with Control, like, oh, this is like the CIA or the FBI, right? And this is like branch of them that we don't tell anybody, but they have powers and stuff like that. It's like, oh, that makes you feel that sort of hype. With Star Wars, it's like, oh, this is all part of like a storyline. This is like something that's happened. And then if you're just like, oh, well, this isn't. This is just its own thing. It's not even a side story that we endorse. It's just there. It's
like if they turned around and went, The Mandalorian isn't canon to the wider Star Wars universe.
It'd be like, oh.
You'd be like, you wouldn't be as into it.
No, because it'd be like, this is just, okay, it's talking about something that's like not, knowing that something's a part of your world in some way makes it, you know, feel real, I guess. So like when it's not part, like if it wasn't part of canon, then you just don't really look at it in that light of, yes, you can't think like, oh man, like 6,000 years ago this happened in here, and like it happened before, you know, Anakin and Luke and all that stuff.
And when it's canon, they can make, you know, references to the other materials, other games, books, movies, whatever.
Exactly.
And it'd be like, oh, that's so cool because this is canon, which means this is actually real.
Yes, exactly. But when it comes to Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, I did finish playing it, guys, just so you know.
Good job.
Finished it today, so it's fresh in my memory banks. Hopefully it's as fresh for Kyle.
It is indeed.
And, you know, I'm just going to come right out and say it. I really enjoyed that game.
So did I. I was honestly a little bit shocked by how much I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that it was like Game of the Year for me. Even though, like, I haven't played through a lot of games, I guess, like, at this point in time, because I haven't played through a lot of games, maybe it is Game of the Year. But I wouldn't say, like, in terms of the overarching, like, of all the games that have came out this year, that it would have been Game of the Year. But, like, the story behind it is good. The gameplay is pretty good. The way that certain things interact with each other, the exploration, the puzzles.
And it's beautiful.
Great, and that's what I was just about to say, is and the music and the art and like just like the world is just gorgeous.
So Star Wars.
It looks so good.
It's beautiful.
It actually looks fucking amazing.
Yeah.
And I just think I think it was a really, really good game, and I really, really cannot wait for another one. Like, no matter what happens. So, do you want to give them sort of a tidbit, since I did Mandalorian, kind of give like a little background information about the game so people know what it is?
About,
yeah, kind of like it's an overarching story. Maybe go into it a little bit of.
So you play as Cal
Kestis.
Cal Kestis, that's his name. Cal with a K, Kestis with a C.
C-A-L, Kestis with a K.
Kestis with a K. I was like, which one is it?
Yeah.
Because like, for a long time,
he's not Irish.
For a long time, I thought it was both K's, and I thought it was both C's. But yeah, you play as Cal Kestis, a Jedi.
Padawan, technically.
He's still a Jedi.
A Jedi.
A Padawan's still a Jedi. It's just you're a Jedi Padawan. You're not a Jedi Knight.
I think technically.
Yeah.
Technically, that's not true, but it is.
Yeah, because they're Jedis, but then you get knighted, and then you're a Jedi Knight.
Yes, but like you have to pass a Jedi Academy as a Padawan to become a Jedi.
It's a weird process.
Yeah.
I want a spin-off that goes through the Jedi education system. I want a High School Musical, but in Star Wars.
Because like if you remember correctly, they always people always say to you, at least in that game, and like they always said in like KOTORs and stuff, well, you're not a Jedi yet. You know what I mean? That was always the thing.
Yeah.
As a Padawan, you're not a Jedi yet. Remember, you like your training and stuff like that. So that's why I always say they're not technically Jedi. They are, but they're technically not.
Yeah. He's a Force user that was being trained as a Jedi.
There you go.
And it takes place, I think it's 10 years after Order 66?
It's several years after Order 66.
Yeah.
Like a decent amount of time. I would say almost, I wouldn't even be surprised if it was about 10, because when he escapes, he's probably like 12 to 14. And then he's probably somewhere between 20 and 25 max, I would say, in terms of age.
So I think that's a good ballpark region for it.
Yeah. They probably had an actual time frame. I just can't, like, off the top of my head, like, an exact year in Star Wars is like fucking trying to remember anything that I don't know.
So it takes place pretty much a couple of years before Rogue One.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
No, I think it does, because it happens before everything happens with the Death Star.
Yeah. So you're playing as good old Cal Kestis, who's in hiding after Order 66, because obviously Jedi have been hunted down by Vader and his Inquisition.
Mm-hmm.
The Inquisitors are Force sensitives who have fancy spinning red lightsabers. You might remember them from Star Wars Rebels. They had an appearance there.
Mm. Which is interesting enough that they don't call them... I've noticed that they've stuck with... And it has to be intentional. They stuck with not calling them the Sith.
Yeah.
They reference the Sith, but they don't call... Because this is like the newer... You know what I mean? It's the new Republic, not the Republic, but it's the newer Star Wars universe, and not the older Republic Star Wars universe. So like they don't refer to them as Sith.
Yeah.
Because even though like you have people like talk about the Sith know this and the dark side and they don't mention that, which is an interesting tidbit, because it gives you more information when you're going other places and you're like, oh yeah, like they're not referencing them as the Sith, they're Force sensitive use, like that's what they said. Force sensitive people, Force users. They never called them Jedi, and they did not call them Sith.
No, and in the canon, the Inquisitors, a lot of them were Jedi that pretty much survived Order 66 and returned.
Yes,
and that's why they're not Sith. They're more so just
because a Sith is a race. Technically, if you're gonna get technical,
Sith is a race. And then they killed all the Sith, didn't they? And then they're like, now I'm going to call ourselves the Sith.
well, what happened back in the Old Republic was that the Sith, they died out. They were killed. There was a point where there was the Jedi and like people. The Sith came. They enslaved people. They killed them. Then the Jedi came back, killed them, and then the Sith went extinct from like they bred as well with people.
Yeah,
and it was bred out
because before there was Sith. People who turned away from the Jedi way and used the dark side were just dark Jedi.
Yes, and so they basically it was bred out as Sith, and then Sith became not a race, and the Sith became a belief, like the dark Jedi is what it became, and then it continued on from there until eventually all dark Jedi were gone, and that's why in the Star Wars 1 through 6. There's no mention of Sith or anything like that, is because there's no bad Jedi. There's no... Well, from 4 through 6, obviously there's no Jedi.
Yeah.
But through 1 through 3, there was no bad Jedi. You were either good... You were either like a Jedi, or once the wars and stuff started happening, and people were like, what the hell was that? Like, who was that? Like, why was there a guy that was bad? They were fallen Jedi.
Yeah.
There was no... That's why there was no Sith, because Sith were literally... They were a race, and then they were what you called bad Jedi.
Yeah.
So anyways, Inquisition, yes.
So yeah. You've been hunted by them, hiding out on a wrecker planet, so pretty much the down ships, and you'd scrap them. Yeah. Really cool, because the game starts, and you're literally in an old Republic Star Destroyer.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And
actually.
you see the separatist ships, the trade people, aren't they actually? The circle ones, that kind of like donuts.
Yeah, you see people,
one of them been grounded.
It's the separatists.
Yeah.
So those are actually the people that
Dooku's peeps from the prequels.
Yes. They're not the Empire.
No.
But they're... Because technically the Empire's not created yet. People have to remember that.
Yeah, it's still at that moment in Fallen Order. It's not Palpatine is the Senate, and that's it, really.
And he's the Senate, and they're the Separatists, and they're now becoming basically what happens is the Separatists grow into the Empire. So basically, that's what people have to remember is what you're seeing throughout that whole game is they're creating an empire, and that's why when you see these terrible things happen, it's showing you how after just a few years after a turn from what it was, they're creating that empire.
Yeah, it wasn't a case that Palpatine became Emperor, and then it was like, oh, all done. They still have to go around and claim all these planets and actually, assert their authority. They still have to claim rule, pretty much.
Yeah, and it's funny because
just a piece of paper they were given, like, yep, you're in charge now.
It's funny because at the end of the beginning of the game, you call them out as like that's a separatist trade ship or whatever. And it starts off as that, but as you're progressing, even though this is like obviously not over like a span of years the game takes place, but like they start to refer to them as kind of like the Empire, the troops and stuff like that. Yeah. And because it's like they're trying to create that, so like it starts off with you even calling them separatists. But like kind of interspersing the line between of what the Empire is and what the Separatists are. Yeah. And that's when you start creating that sort of divide. And it starts to make you think like, oh, because I even called out to Becca, I was like, oh, they just refer to it as a Separatist because this game takes place only a while after.
It's only a couple years after. There's still people alive in the game world that are like, oh, things were different before the war.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, yeah, for them, the Clone Wars was still fairly recent.
Yeah.
It's like all that was still fresh for them. Exactly. And that's something you never think about.
It's kind of like it must have been like 20 years, I think is what it ends up. Because the Clone Wars happened, and then after the Clone Wars, it was like a few years. Yeah. And then Order 66 happens, and it was like so it's about 20 years.
You're looking about 20 years, yeah.
From the second and third movie, this is about 20 years roughly.
Like barely a generation ago.
Yeah. And so that's why they'll refer to stuff and be like, oh man, things were so much different because it was not that long. It was like 10, 20 years ago. Somewhere in that area.
Which is the perspective you never really thought of giving.
It's a perfect the setting for it actually worked out so nice.
Yeah. It's like we're gonna put you in a time period where you can enjoy all the Star Warsy stuff. Stormtroopers and lightsabers and the Force.
But before everything turned to absolute utter shit.
Yeah. That kind of stuff is still burning.
So it's not just straight up rebels. It's not just like straight up. It's like the beginning of that you start to see.
It's like you meet what's his face from Rogue One.
Yeah,
Forrest Whitaker's character.
Raz.
I don't know his name. He's Star Wars' version of Che Guevara, pretty much.
It's like a WAV or something.
I can't remember his name.
It's like something really weird.
It's like you meet him and he's still, it's the start of the rebels, start of the rebellion.
And that's just on Kashyyyk, because that's where they're starting to they're actually invading and taking over and enslaving.
Yeah. And for you who don't know, Kashyyyk is the Wookiee homeworld.
But anyways, back to the start. Explain just like the overarching theme. We keep getting sidetracked talking about the beginning. Let's just talk about what actually happened.
So overarching thing. You're a Jedi Padawan in hiding.
And you come out.
A series of events leads you to happen to be revealed that you're, a Padawan.
That's kind of semi-cut off from the Force. You still have some Force, but you're semi-cut off because you haven't had to use it so long to hide.
And you pretty much go on this jolly adventure with a group of essentially misfits. It's your usual. Yeah. We're the group of down and outs, and we're going to make a difference.
Small, though. There's like 2 people.
Yeah, quite literally. It's you and 2 others. And your mission is to pretty much try rebuild the Jedi Order.
But you're doing it so that sounds extensive, right? And you might think, well, that sounds ridiculous. How is that happening? No. What it is they're trying to follow a small glimmer of hope of finding a holocron that has the names of all Force-sensitive children that were cataloged, so that way they can use them to help build the Order by starting a whole new Jedi, right?
Yep.
And so the premise is that you're going to get that, but also you find out that the starting Empire is trying to get that too, to basically kill them and stop that from happening because they don't want that. So you're trying to find this list to turn him into, a new Jedi Council, and they're trying to stop that from happening because they know it as well. So that's like the theme of what you're supposed to be doing, right? So you go through a whole bunch of stuff.
Great set pieces in the game. It's a very linear game, but it has areas that you can
so surprised.
Run around and explore.
I'm so surprised how unlinear it was compared to what I thought it was going to be, though.
I thought it was going to be like almost on rails, just
literally
level
on rails.
by level.
Yeah,
but it's more so. Here's an area that isn't too big. Run around, explore, do what you need to do, get your collectibles.
It's more like, here's a map. If you're going to go off the beaten path, you can find different ways to get places and see different things, and you can get like little secrets that will give you little tidbits of information or customization stuff.
Yeah, lightsaber parts.
And so it's like, you can do that, or you can just literally just never stop going the way, like straight ahead.
Yeah. It's like you can play it as a really linear game if you want to.
But you can also explore a little bit more, which at the beginning of the game, that's all. I just was exploring everything, and then I was like, I need to get this done before we do the podcast. So you go through several different planets, basically trying to unlock artifacts that will unlock where the holocron is.
Yeah, you're following the trail of a Jedi Master who pretty much he hid the holocron away, and he's like, look, you got to do all these things to unlock it.
And he did that not because he necessarily knew what was going to happen, but because he had a feeling something was going to happen to the Order, and so he wanted to hide.
Yeah, he had he says in one of them he had like a forced premonition of something terrible to come.
So he wanted to hide.
The Jedi Council weren't listening to him, so he
available Force users, so that way if they needed to be found, they could be.
Yeah.
And basically, you go through a romp through several different planets in the universe, trying to get through this stuff and meeting certain people on the way, doing certain things. There's lots of... Think of it as a mixture of Uncharted and sort of... What's the game I'm thinking of? It's like if you took Star Wars and Uncharted and like...
With the dab of Soulsborne.
With the dab of Dark Souls.
Yeah.
And you have the sort of game that you're looking at, except it's all in a Star Wars universe. And
it just worked so well.
You unlock certain weapon upgrades. Technically 2, but then you get different customization options. You unlock upgrades for a little droid that you get, and you get skill points for stuff.
Yeah, so it's traditional game, gameplay wise, what you think of. It's you can get more customizational stuff or just random collectibles, and you can change your appearance, and stuff you expect. Through it all, you then get to level up your force bar.
Right, it's in level up your health, etc., etc.
Unlock new moves, the usual.
So in terms of the game, that's what the game is.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of our thoughts and feelings on it, so I played the game on. So there's, I think, what is it? The first is Padawan or something like that. The first difficulty is the easiest, and then it's Jedi Knight, and then it's Jedi Master, and then it's Jedi something extreme.
Yeah, it's there's Grandmaster or something.
There's 4 difficulties, and I played on the third one, so not the middle difficulty, not that normal difficulty, the one above it.
Well, easy, normal, hard. You played on hard.
Yeah,
and then those very hard.
Yes, easy, normal, hard, very hard.
Yeah, you played on hard.
I played on hard.
That's the difficulty I played through the first time as well.
Yeah, it's fucking... This is the thing is, playing on the difficulty I think was the right call, but there's definitely times when I wanted to beat my head against the wall because it was just oh my god, it's so frustrating.
It actually gets difficult at times.
Yes, real difficult. Usually it was the bosses that I had the most struggle with.
The bloody frog.
The first time I fought the frog, yes. The boss frog, I died a few times. And then Purge Troopers a couple times caught me off guard because I'd beat... So this is what I'll say. Combat was good. So I'm going to go through the points and I'm just going to say so the combat was good, but my issue with the combat is when there would be a mixture of the platform and the combat, and if you're too close to edge, you making a wrong swing would knock you off.
Yeah.
And in a Dark Souls game, I get it, right? And I know that that's what this is kind of going for, but I tell you what, there is nothing more frustrating than being in the middle of a fight, almost killing somebody, then falling off, getting started somewhere else, and then them having the leg up and just start smacking the shit out of you.
Yeah.
It was it was so frustrating. I'm trying to jump somewhere to fight the guys better because I'm getting shot at by... I know that they put that many guys that you have to fight in there because it makes like the badassness feel better because you're like some strong superhero Jedi that's killing
a bunch of people. Things and throwing people around.
Do you know how hard it is to deflect 6 people blasting at you while you're fighting 2 purge troopers and then 3 regular like stormtroopers with stun batons?
Oh yeah,
it's actually really, really difficult. And I like had enough where there's only like 3 skills that I didn't unlock because I like got enough skill points and stuff from killing people.
I'll tell you this: the charged force push power, your best friend against everyone.
Yes,
if there's a group of people, you just do that and you just do
as
much as you can to try and knock them over the edge.
Yes, you just do whatever you can. And
like I think it's in one of the last areas where like 2 bridges fall down. Where there's like the fires.
There's the purge troopers, and you can open it up if you hit the thing.
Yeah,
and it'll open up. They came at me, and I was like, I didn't want to cheese this, but fuck you guys, because I cannot
I
fight
did
2
it
of
without
you right
even
now.
thinking.
I was like, I cannot fight 2 of you guys right now. I cannot. And then you fight like 40 other guys after that, with no way to get help. Like, I already had to use it at the beginning of the fight because they ended up just getting a hit on me, because I don't know if it was just because of how I was playing or what, but like, my block sometimes wouldn't trigger when if he hit me once, sometimes I could block in the middle before the next hit, but then other times I couldn't block before that. Even if it was the same attack pattern or whatever, it was like if I didn't hit the block at the right time, I wouldn't start blocking after getting hit.
Yeah.
So I'd get hit and I'd go to block because I'm like, oh fuck, I need to block. And I'd already be getting hit again, so I couldn't do shit about it.
Locked into it.
And so then I would take so much free damage. Listen, overall though, the combat was good and I liked the challenge of it.
It was so satisfying as well. Like when you are like deflecting like blaster bolts or parrying enemies. It's done in such a good way that it's so satisfying.
When you were a badass and you executed as a badass,
you really felt like a badass.
You felt like a badass.
Yes.
And that was the best part.
It was like exhilarating.
So tell me, what was the hardest battle for you in that whole game?
The hardest battle
on that? Did you ever change from that difficulty?
I played the whole thing.
I said I'm not changing it, no matter how many times I saw something telling me how I could change the difficulty.
Yeah, I played through the entire thing on the Jedi Master difficulty, and then I've played about half of it on the hardest difficulty.
How's that feel?
Very different. The difficulty spike is actually surprisingly big for it.
Really?
Yeah. Frog guy, another way he'd kill you in like 2 hits usually.
Yeah.
1 hit or quitter. Oh. 1 hit. Like if you don't like literally go get your health upgrades and come back, he kills you in 1 hit.
I think a big problem for me too was when it came to like doing the backstep, they really tried to make you do the backstep to do like the cool shit, but because I'm so used to like Soulsborne games, I only ever roll.
Yeah.
So I never got the benefit of using backstep. I only ever rolled. So I lost a lot of extra power and stuff that I could do because there's even abilities that if you did the backstep,
you get like special attacks.
But I wouldn't do it because I would just be like, I'm gonna roll because it like feels smoother to me than just tapping.
Yeah, doing the roll, it feels safer as well. It's like, if I roll, I'll dodge the attack.
For sure.
Whereas, like, just a step, you're like, oh, no, I won't.
So, it's the hardest fight for you.
Hardest fight for me would probably be either the last boss or... the last boss.
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 What's
or the
name?
frog.
What's her name?
The first boss or the last boss. A pretty okay time in between. But I stumbled at the start and I stumbled at the end.
Okay, what about the first time that you're fighting the Knight Brothers and there's 3 of them and there's 2 shooting at you from above in different areas and 1's running at you, smacking you, and you're just like, no, stop! I've never seen you guys before. Stop!
What's
it's
going
like the
on?
first time that you have a guy that's like shooting at you because I just thought like, at least I won't see like people shooting at me with blasters, and then they come out with their fucking blaster like bow and arrows, and they're just.
I actually really like that though because it was like, more blasters, and I went to block it, the same speed I would a blaster.
Yeah.
And I'd block, and it's like, wait, where is it? And I'd unblock, and then it hit me.
It hit you, yes, I did the same thing.
I need to like time it better.
Oh my god, it was so frustrating. It was so frustrating. But what's her name for the last boss? I don't know why I can't think.
Oh, was she the second sister
Tally?
Or ninth sister?
The second sister.
Second sister.
Talir. What's her name?
Talia, something like that. Started with a T, had an A. Google second sister name.
Trilla.
So
Trilla, that last fight
kicked my ass.
I don't. Okay, so at least I know it's not me. How many times? Remember, the guys, it's on hard difficulty, which is, it's not anything to snuff at. Yeah, it really wasn't. I was surprised at the difference. Yeah. The game wasn't like Dark Souls level of hard, but the thing is like there were times though when it was like, why don't they stop throwing fucking things at me? Yeah. And I was like, oh man, this is actually harder than I thought.
It felt like how it was supposed to be played.
Yeah.
Whereas like it was easy at times, really hard at other times. So it's a balance.
So how many times did you have to start that fight over? Because I tell you,
I think it was like 5 or 6 attempts, I think.
I had to do it like 20 times. Because this is the worst part. Is like, I am not bad at games by any means. Like, I beat Dark Souls 3 like relatively quickly compared to most people, and I had no problem with it. But I don't know what it was about this game, and I think it was just the added like force powers and like unblockable attacks and stuff like that I didn't know like exactly what I could do. And like, I definitely didn't parry enough throughout the game because I just didn't feel, I felt like I could do anything else but parry.
Yeah. And that's something that really helped me in the last fight. It's like, maybe I should just try like parrier, like go on the defense, not the offense for once.
That's the thing is like with her, I actually had to do like a mixture. I had to parry a lot, but I also had to just
as soon as you got your openings.
Whenever, like, it was to the point where when she would roll after attack, I would be rolling the same way already at the same exact time because I knew that she was going to be moving, and we would be like fighting each other. Oh my god, I won with no stim packs left, and I had like, and the thing is, I didn't even upgrade my last stim pack either.
Oh, so you didn't even have.
I didn't have a full heal. I would get 4. I had 4 stim packs that I have, and I'd have to, and they were like the one below the final one. Oh. So like when I had to heal, I had to fucking heal, and I would be like, I remember I was getting so frustrated, and then like, there's probably 3 times that I almost beat her and like had to like, and then died. And just remember, it was always when she would jump in the air and do the ground like blast wave.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, it's so frustrating because everything else I can predict, I can dodge, I can block if I know it. But with that one, getting the jump right is so hard.
Because you literally have to time it right.
And you have to double jump.
Yeah.
You almost have to double jump. You can single jump over it, but you have to time it too perfectly. And then you have to double jump, but you forget when you're in the middle of the fight about jump even.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe that was just me.
You're too focused on
but I'm focused on
her
rolling, parry, fighting, force powers, that when it comes to the jumping, I forget that I can jump.
Yeah, that was a big thing with me as well.
And oh my god, but it felt so good when I beat her.
Oh, yeah.
So,
struggled her the most. What would you say was your favorite moment of the game? Because the game had a lot of moments. You know what I mean when I say moments.
Yeah.
It's like, this shot, this character introduction, this scene, that moment. And I had a lot of them, like Star Wars movies.
Oh yeah, of course.
It had a lot of them.
I don't know, like one thing that like really stuck out to me that like that I'm just thinking of it right now. Maybe it's just because I had just finished it and it's like it's near this part, but I know that there was several moments in the beginning where like it was just looking at something and seeing like the vastness of it. But in terms of like a part of the story or whatever that actually like hit me, I think when you go and you see like the premonition of what the future can be like, and what's happening with the kids and stuff like that, and then and then when you, it's like everything's normal and all of a sudden you're in like Empire armor.
Yeah.
Like it just happens. It doesn't. No one
yeah.
talks about it or anything. It's just there. It just happens, and you see that maybe your whole entire cause behind what you're doing, you're looking at it the wrong way.
Yeah.
You're looking at it from a perspective of like what you think needs to happen because of what you want.
Yeah.
Or what actually would be best based on like the outcome of what could happen.
Yeah.
And I think that part kind of like really hit home to me, just because I was like, oh shit, like
it's one of those like you have to reflect on it moments. You're
like this whole thing that I've been fighting for is actually not,
maybe it's not the noble cause,
the
really.
noblest cause. That's what I can think of right now.
It's a good choice.
because I also like the still frames of everything. It like it almost showed it instead of it just like being like, oh, here's a little like you're going through and doing it. It was like, here's a still frame of you in this thing, and boom, boom, and like seeing like the kids crouching and hiding, saying your name. One of them just getting fucking blasted. And I was just like, oh my god, I could not believe I saw that. I was like, what? It was like
ballsy move, blasting the kid.
What about you?
For me, 2 moments stick with me. It was the crystal choosing scene.
Oh,
you know, when you get the crystal and he like has his little breakdown.
That really like hit me hard. I was like, oh my god, like I felt every bit of that.
Yeah, that was fantastic. That was a great performance from Cameron. What's his face?
So good.
Yeah, and then the second one would be that certain small tiny little thing that happens after you beat the last boss.
Oh yeah, that is an impactful moment only because everything around you just starts fucking going to shit as well. Like that you get that moment and you're just like, oh no, like what's it's you like, and my thought process was like, oh, is this like in her mind? And when I realized that it wasn't,
this is real,
that was happening, I was like, oh. And then just the line, "You'd do better to surrender," and then you saying, "Yeah, I know, I probably would." Pretty much, he says like, "Yeah, I know I would."
It's like, yeah,
but then just readies himself anyways.
Kind of like, no, like I can't win this one.
I can't win this one, and I know I shouldn't even try. But here's me putting my stance like I'm gonna do something anyways.
It's like
his way of saying, yeah, I definitely shouldn't try to do this. And the best part
every part of him was going like, I want to say, okay, I surrender, but I just know I can't.
No, like I know I should, but I'm not going to.
Yeah.
The best part too is like no one knew who it was.
Yeah.
Like not really. You know what I mean?
Because you have to remember, like Vader was. Oh, there you go.
Well, there you go. You spoiled it for everyone. I'll cut that out.
But yeah, like no one knew who he was for a long time.
No, like he wasn't, because he wasn't actually, there wasn't. Basically, God, I'm trying not to spoil such an interesting plot point, but
they reveal how the world finds out about him in one of the comics.
Yeah,
and it's literally just at a point where it's like, okay, we kind of need to tell people who you are now because this is getting too difficult for everyone.
Yeah.
It was more so out of necessity than spectacle. He went a really long time with no one knowing.
It's because he didn't want to.
Yeah.
When you're only there. You're only there as like the main commander to make sure shit gets done.
Yeah.
Right? You know, you're the one that makes sure shit gets done. And so you weren't needed most of the time because everyone did their part. Like, you know what I mean? Like the Empire was a fucking horribly oppressive place, right?
Oh yeah.
And so you have this situation where that was a very impactful. I was not expecting that at all.
And I thought it was just like, oh, this is a cutscene.
Yeah.
And then it throws you back into gameplay and it's like, wait, no.
and then when you're running and it just like everything around you and it just shows you the actual raw force, like the raw power of what's there, and you're just like,
holy crap.
Everyone around you dying, and you're just like running. That's all you can do is just run.
And it's just absolute chaos.
Yeah, it was really well done.
Yeah, that was, it was a good note to end it on as well.
yeah, it was that whole thing. I really liked Meryl joining you. I think she's like one of my favorite characters. Just out of like that small little part of when she pops in and she's just like, because like, it really made no sense to me. I was like, why is this person here? Lamenting over this, raising their dead sister and having all these issues, but just sitting on this planet that fucking sucks, that no one likes, and just doing whatever. And like, I was not, when it started getting closer, I was expecting the team up, but I was definitely expecting a fight. And then when that didn't happen,
I was expecting a fight, then a team up.
But when that didn't happen, I was just like, oh, like okay. And I thought that the way that they did her, like the way that they did her, was like really like cool. Like when you saw her again, it was like, no hood. Here's just like a cute girl with white, like gray hair that's walking up to you. That's just like, I'm actually not like some sort of crazy bitch.
Yeah, I'm not trying to be scary or intimidating now. This is how I usually normally look.
and I want to know like why I should trust you.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And then like when you're walking out, I don't know if you noticed it, but like she would appear in certain ledges and stuff like that, and just sit on a ledge and like just sitting there watching you walk by.
It's like right after when you go out and like there's the big animal guys.
Yeah.
Like, are you not going to help?
And she's like, no, I think you got this.
You're good.
Yeah, I think I'll just watch. And it just really shows that, you know, that when they were crafting this game, they thought about every character really well. Is there anything that you didn't particularly like about the game. I know my gripe was kind of like the fighting, like, or the also some of the like jumping stuff where, okay, grab on, didn't grab. Oh, grab onto it's not grabbing. I didn't jump just right. Like there was multiple times when like, or like something was so blended into the environment I couldn't figure out where to go. Yeah. And so I was like, where am I supposed to go? I'm jumping all around. I'm dying. And I had to go through a crack that was just like just barely visible on the side of it that you would not have thought. You would have thought it was just in the background. But other than that, overall, I think the game was really, really well done.
Oh yeah, probably the only issue that I'd have really, it's not even an issue. Actually don't know, if I'm honest. Like I really enjoyed the combat. Like I'm a big, Souls fan, so any game that's like that I really enjoy.
Right.
Dark Souls, Bloodborne, The Surge. Love them. So I was into that. I thought the performances were all fantastic, looked beautiful, felt beautiful. I think the only thing that I'd have gripes with would be it doesn't encourage exploration that much. It's there for you, but it's not really incentivized. It's not really necessary.
If you want shortcuts and stuff, and you want to get customization options, yes. But I think, or if you see, the thing is like they added the spots where if you explored, you would find hidden story elements.
Yeah.
But what I think the reason why that wasn't more impactful is because those little story elements would be like 3-second voice clips.
Yeah.
And then if you wanted to look at more, you had to like go in and read it.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, I'd rather a game spend 5 minutes telling me something outright in person than me. It's something that a lot of games do nowadays where they make a codex and you have to go read it, and I won't do it.
No.
Because breaking up my gameplay to do that is more annoying than... Like, I did look at some of the stuff. Like, don't get me wrong, like some of the enemies and stuff, because I wanted to know more. I was like, what the hell was that? But, like, in terms of overall, like, having some of, like, the large chunks of information just in a codex, like, I would have preferred it way more if, like, Cordova would have, like, every time he did it, BD had a Cordova talk about that in depth.
Yeah.
Like a voxophone or whatever.
Yeah, like a little audio log.
Just a little audio log. I think, or having the option to do that would have been better, because
and maybe with something like the collectibles where you just touch it and get those like 2 seconds of dialogue from your little premonition of it. Maybe just have like a 4-second cinematic of just the person being shot.
Yeah.
It'd break it up that bit more and would make it that bit more attention catching. Because I find myself going through getting all the collectibles, I'd just be like, okay, get this, move on. That I'd be checking the map to see where I have to go next to try find the next one.
Yeah.
Before the thing's even finished playing.
Yeah, and I don't know. I guess you're right with that. Like it wasn't super encouraged, but at the same time, they did it in a way. The reason I think they did that is because they didn't want to make it feel like you needed to go get anything.
That if you want just the story, you could just go through and get it. And
that's why I was glad that they didn't make it so like there was equipment that you just could miss out on or something that if you're in there, like it's customization, whatever, cool, customization part, whatever. If I miss that, it sucks, but whatever. But when it comes to like missing out on like a piece of armor or a weapon that could have been good, it sucks when you miss that stuff, especially when you don't make it like. I think that's the thing is they made it so you had to have multiple force powers in areas, and so you'd have to go back, and I was fine with that.
Yeah.
The issue with that though is you'd have to go back to those places, like those planets, sometimes another time anyways. But sometimes when you went back, you still didn't have that force power you needed. So that means that you would have to make a special trip to that planet after you got all your force powers just to finish cleaning it up. And to me, that's just a little lazy. It's just a little lazy, and I would have preferred to just been able to like maybe most of the stuff you could have got without doing that, and there's only like a couple things, but like you could be stuck at 70% like complete on a planet unless you came back to it after you got everything else. So that was, but other than that though, in terms of like the actual game, the game was great. The story was, I think, great. I think the story in terms of like writing and stuff like that was probably like better and had less inconsistencies than even like the new Star Wars movie that came out. And that was refreshing, and I think that it's...
And then they kept it smaller scale as well. They didn't try to go too big with it, because they're like, well, we can't go too big with this, because the big stuff happens in the movies. Well, we need to have our own conflicts that are big for our characters.
Yes, this was a conflict over a holocron that could have been big in large scale, so it still makes you feel like there's a whole universe-threatening thing.
But the actual thing, it went past, and it was really just a blip on everyone's radar.
Yes, the whole thing was about exploring and figuring out how to get to that holocron.
Yeah, which I think helped the game a lot.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't trying to lay it on too heavy for you, but it was still heavy enough that you were invested.
The goal was to try and get to the part where you could try to restore the order.
Yeah.
The goal wasn't to, you have to restore the whole order and bring peace to the entire galaxy.
No.
You know what I mean? And I think the reason why that also works is that it allows it so when you are playing through, you don't have this like grandiose thing of like, well, I'm so important doing my little shit that the end thing is like something so magnificent and no one else could come up with it except for me, a 20-year-old like kid that somehow knows better than everything. That wasn't the case. I don't know. I think the game did well, and I'm looking forward to a second one.
Oh, definitely.
And whether it's the same cast or not. Like I would prefer the same cast and have it. I don't know what you could do to make it as interesting, like regaining your powers and stuff like that. Yeah. And if that's not the case, then I'd even be fine with it if I don't even know what you could do.
Yeah.
I don't even want to go into it because like there's just so many options.
So many options.
Like take. But in terms of that, I think I definitely say play the game.
Oh, definitely. 100%.
I was dragging my feet, not because I thought it was going to be bad necessarily, but just because like I was like, I mean, like, will it be good enough that I'm not going to feel like I wasted time or something? 25 hours for a first playthrough, somewhere between 20 and 25. Not that long, but it's not that short.
Yeah, it's
so plenty of time.
Good middle ground.
You just play it. You'll enjoy it. You'll enjoy the story. You'll enjoy the acting. Like it was all
so well done.
Well done. Yes, it was very well done, and it looks great. Feels great.
And I thought if you get it, it's a big middle finger to EA saying single-player games are dead.
That's you just remind me. That's the other thing that I wanted to say is that's the thing behind it is that it's a single-player game that really encapsulated something that a lot of games aren't doing nowadays. Even there's like single-player games that come out that still have like a little too much other stuff to it. So it was a good game, and you should play it.
100%.
And on from that, we're going to move on to our last topic, which is going to be Star Wars: Rise of Skywalker.
Yep. So if you haven't seen it and don't want to know anything about it,
don't listen to this part.
This is the part where you'd dip out.
And if you've already seen it or you don't care, same thing. We're not going to go through we'll try not to give away the biggest spoilers, clearly.
Yeah.
But like if it happens, it happens.
Yeah, we won't. We'll try not to, but we won't stop ourselves either.
Yes. So, Kyle, you just finished seeing this about an hour and a half ago.
Yep, I literally got out of the theater, drove here, and now we're recording.
Yes. So, why don't you tell us a little overview of it, and then what you think?
So, obviously, it's the last of the Skywalker trilogies? Series saga.
Last of the saga of Skywalker, but the last of the trilogy of the newer ones.
It's two conclusions in one.
Yes.
So yeah, it's obviously continue on from Last Jedi, and don't really know how much to explain the story without giving anything away of it, to be honest.
I would just say, if I were going to explain it, I would say it's the First Order and Kylo Ren coming to an end or attempting to come to an end rather with Rey, Finn, and Poe, the same ones that we know, attempting to do that. The same. It's what from the last movie we saw the rebels escaping from Kylo Ren and the First Order.
Yeah,
and from this movie,
Snoke was killed as well.
Yes, and so from this movie we're seeing the rebels trying to make their last stand, whatever they can, against the First Order.
Well, Kylo now leading the First Order is like got his murder rage kill boner for everything.
Yeah, and it's I'll say that the movie had several twists and turns, and there's no way that we can kind of explain more to the story without completely like giving everything away. But basically, what happens is, and this is your last chance to stop listening before we.
I feel like we won't be able to talk about this if we try try to hold back. I think we need to be able to...
Yeah. So, and so what happens is basically you find out that the First Order was all orchestrated by the Emperor, who was barely survived.
Yeah.
And was
living in the unknown regions of space.
In on a Sith homeworld.
Yeah.
And he's attempting to regain his power.
Yeah.
And he has a whole fleet of starships that he's been building, saving, storing, whatever.
And it's not like a Empire fleet or a First Order fleet. It's a Sith fleet.
Yes, it's literally a Sith fleet. So
this is probably the movie where things are clearly labeled as Sith consistently through it.
And it's because when the Emperor obviously went to this planet, it is this old Sith world, he obtained pretty much the rest of the powers from the old Sith.
Yeah.
So that's why it's talking about Sith so much, and why maybe like the game didn't and stuff like that. Is because this is the time period where we've acknowledged that there's Dark Jedi, we acknowledge kind of that there's Sith, really, overall, and we're finding out that it's within the Emperor because he went to a Sith homeworld, and he's pretty much trying to... we find out that he orchestrated the First Order even coming to fruition.
Yeah.
He was Snoke, kind of.
He made Snoke. He was speaking through Snoke.
Yes.
So Snoke being killed off in The Last Jedi and everyone hating it makes sense when you look at it as an entire thing in the trilogy, because Snoke was just a pawn.
Literally. He was literally, like, created, like, in a lab. And that's why people who, like, compared and contrasted and said that he was so similar to the Emperor and it was too similar is because he was.
He was the Emperor.
He was the Emperor.
And people talking about a little detail with Snoke about how he had a ring that was a rock that's only found beneath where Vader's castle is on Mustafar. And I was like, that has to tie into it somehow. Well, the reason he has that is because, the Emperor probably had it.
Yeah.
It was probably his ring.
Exactly. And so, we find out, this is... Basically, your overview, we see Rey coming to power, her friends coming to power, Rey struggling with power issues, potentially worrying about going to the dark side.
Yeah.
Kylo Ren struggling with issues, potentially coming to the light side.
Yeah.
And then the First Order becoming the Final Order and starting a whole new empire.
Yeah.
So it's a romp where it's like through the galaxy of just trying to watch the good guys take out the bad guys, but actually finding a decent amount of trials and tribulations while going through it, such as Leia. Obviously, we have to, everyone has to know Leia's dead. She dies. She dies. And
which I thought they did very well in the movie, considering what they had to work with.
That was the best way to have it happen, and that was the only thing that I didn't like about that death is how that's what made Kylo Ren stop being bad, pretty much. I know it was more than that, but like that was what made him falter.
It was the straw that broke the camel's back.
And I think that only frustrated me because we have Kylo Ren who's reached this pinnacle where he's like, there's no way I'm not being bad and you're not joining me.
Yeah, he can't go back.
But the thing is, it wasn't.
But if you paid attention to how he phrased
it,
though, Rey constantly telling him that he can come back, but he's like, after what I did, I can't. So it's not more saying that, I myself, I'm unable to. It's more so like, how could any of you look at me?
Yeah.
Other than Kylo Ren. None of you be able to see me as Ben Solo after the things I've done.
And what you see is that it comes down to the point where you have Kylo Ren who, after going through all this stuff, and then I think mixed with the fact that Rey was in the position that she could have killed Kylo Ren.
Yeah.
And then she finally, like, stops herself and it was like, no, like, I'm not doing this.
That was a beautiful scene.
And healed him instead. Which I will say, they definitely used Force healing too much in this movie. They used it, they overused it a lot.
I know that, like, in old canon, it's supposed to be, like, a super rare and special thing.
Yeah.
That, like, Sith can't do it. They have Sith alchemy, but they can't heal people.
But like, see, if you're thinking of, like, if I know that a lot of people had complaints with that. Like, I had some friends that were like, the Force healing was used too much. And I agree that it was. But it's not like it's uncharacteristic, because if you look at, like, KOTOR and stuff like that, you literally get skills that just heal you. Like, it's not like it's that big of a big of a
And from a movie-making
thing.
perspective, they used it perfectly. They used the rule of 3.
Yeah.
Where it's like 3 big scenes where you see it being used.
Yeah. It could have been toned down, like how much. I think that what it was able to do was a little much.
Yeah.
Like that snake thing had like a huge wound on it that like they ended up trapping them all, and like she just completely patched over. I thought that was a little weird. I feel like Kylo Ren should have had some like weakness after it got healed. Yeah. And I think like those parts could have because this is the thing is Kylo Ren, when he used it, you see what happens when he did.
Yeah.
And that was good because it showed how much energy it took and how hard it was, and that it didn't even fully fix her.
Yeah, Rey does say it the first time, I think.
Oh, yeah, it takes life essence, but like you see nothing happen to her that would show anything otherwise, and all you see is that it completely restores whatever she touches, and it's like that's a little OP. That's a little OP if you're not gonna at least like. I would have liked it better if it showed a little bit more.
Yeah.
But while we're like on that subject though of talking about stuff,
the Force powers,
like
they expanded upon them massively in ways that I see why people have issues with it. I personally don't, because like old canon Force powers were ridiculous in some aspects.
Yeah.
Like Luke could turn into this beam of light that would shut down Force powers around him.
See, but
like that's over the top. And the idea of being able to pass a lightsaber through the Force, I think it's weird enough that it's like, yep, that's Star Wars.
Yes.
But it's believable enough.
I think like being able to pass things through their telekinetic bonds, that was a push for me, but at the same time, there is so much in the Star Wars universe that is so OP or strong or whatever that you can't the reason why that was happening, like you could think like, oh well, then why don't you just connect to people and you could just kill them, but like they only had that connection because
They didn't even have it
connected
themselves. They say in The Last Jedi that the Force was doing it, but they weren't doing it.
And the thing was, it was established because of Palpatine, but it continued to linger because the Force is the Force is anything.
Yeah.
It chooses how things go,
The Force
right?
is omnipotent. It's like nature.
And so that was going to happen. Like if it happens that way and it seems strong, it's because it is, but that's because the Force chose it. These movies are about how the Force is this thing that makes things right or wrong based on how it sees. The reason why the evil happens is because it's the balance that the Force deems needs to be necessary, right? And like I like that aspect of it. I think it's smart. But if we're gonna go into on the subject though with the Force powers, people not liking it, I'm gonna just go through real quick and I'm gonna say the things that I liked and that I didn't like, but then I'm going to explain why I liked the movie anyways, because for the people that think that if I didn't like something, it means the movie's shit. What I didn't like was the blade that was used with the runes and stuff like that. I thought that part was just, you could have just deleted it.
Yeah.
And just not needed that. That part was completely unnecessary to me. So if you didn't, like, you know, if you've watched it, then I'm talking about the blade that has the runes to find the Sith homeworld, or not the homeworld, but the Sith planet, that where everyone is. There's a blade that they have, and like once it gets translated, which that part's fine, whatever, but like they find the planet that the Death Star falls on, and there's like a protractor attachment, and like she uses, somehow the blade can tell where the ship's fallen, even though it predicted that the ship was crashed and burned, and it was able to predict where the holocron is.
That's what I was thinking. It's like, that means that someone made that blade after the events of episode 4. It's like,
or they predicted that the whole crash would happen, and they created a blade that showed only that, and that was the only purpose of the blade. Like,
it's weird.
The blade could. This is what it is.
It's a Sith blade, so it means it was a Sith person who knew it.
Yes.
And then was like, I'm not going to warn anyone.
Yeah. to me, it's a very big. Most of the issues I have are just things that I would have liked to see leave.
Leave
or expanded upon of why they're that way. Yeah. But for most of the stuff I had issues with, I would have been fine. If that was just gone, I wouldn't have cared. It's not that I wanted it to be like, oh, that was stupid, because if it wasn't there, I could have lived with that better. You know what I mean? So like the Sith blade, that just being taken out, that whole part, wouldn't have been upset by it. I was fine with the whole snake part. But in all honesty, if that part wasn't there and they had just went down there and they realized where they were, I realized that they did that to make it have an air of like scariness about being trapped down there. But like it happened so quick and there was no intensity to it whatsoever because you knew automatically that she was just gonna save the snake and it was gonna leave. So like that part I think could have just been taken out and it would have been fine. I didn't like having this new character introduced on that planet that like she came up and she's just like I liked those characters.
Oh yeah.
I didn't like how she automatically then all of a sudden became like a supporting main character. The team now. It didn't make sense to me until the very end where Lando says something that I realized, oh, they were setting up a movie for Lando and her to have a movie together. Not that I'm saying that that's for sure going to happen, but that definitely was heavily implied. Oh, yeah. And that made me kind of annoyed.
I would see the shit out of that, if I'm honest.
Oh, I mean, I would too, but we really, really didn't need to have it explained by taking someone's fist, tattooing it on their fist that that's what they're doing, and then punching us in the face. I didn't need that. I could have just been fine with that. Like Lando's whole line of saying, "Well, let's go find out then." And it's like
rings at the camera.
It's like, oh my god! Like so like that part to me could have just been taken out. You could have had those characters there, but I just don't think that she should have been like an integral part.
Yeah,
because it just didn't make sense. And then other than that, it was just like small, like little writing, like continuity errors that could have had like certain plot holes that could have been filled that didn't. But there was just so much to fill after the last two movies had their like differences between them. Yeah. There's no way they were gonna fix everything.
I'd say a lot of the issues have come up in this one because J.J. Abrams didn't do Last Jedi.
Yeah.
That he did. And I'm not saying he did Force Awakens, that Rian Johnson did Last Jedi, and then J.J. did.
And I'm not saying that he was better in necessarily. I'm just saying that
if he did all three, it would probably be a bit more cohesive.
Or what is it, Rian Johnson?
Yeah, Rian Johnson.
If he would have done all three, then it would have been fine. I don't know whether it would have been better or worse, but at least it would have been cohesive, right?
It's like that's why there's a lot of issues when you look at the three movies. It's like the Knights of Ren are mentioned in The Force Awakens, not mentioned at all in The Last Jedi, and then they're in Rise of Skywalker. It's because J.J. Abrams thought of that, and he liked them, and he wanted them, and Rian Johnson didn't.
Yeah.
So that's why they just disappear for a whole movie.
And then, that leads me on to my final 2 points. The Knights of Ren should have had they were shown throughout that whole movie. They should have had more with them. Yeah. There was a whole cool story arc that could have been explored there and even went into a thing where you could have made your own movie off of them. Yeah. And now they're just worthless.
Yeah.
Nothing happened from that. And that really upset me because the Knights of Ren were one of the coolest things that I saw.
I was so excited to learn about them.
And then when I saw them keep popping up, I was like, oh, it's going to happen. But I think almost what happened was the end happened and then Abrams was like, maybe I should just like put these scenes of them in there to show that they're a threat that could come.
Yeah.
Because I forgot that they weren't in the last one and they needed to be because that's what I envisioned. So that disappointed me. And then the last thing was oh shit, what was the last thing? Now that I said that part, now I can't remember what the very last thing was. I know that the Knights of Ren. What was the other thing that you said?
I forget.
It was about the differences between the two movies.
That they're not as like cohesive together when you look at the trilogy.
They're not as cohesive and the last thing that bothered me was, and this bothered my friend too, and he made a good point about it. It's just that the beginning opened and moved so quickly. The exposition was just like everything was just.
Yeah.
The first act was rushed when I actually would have liked 15 to 20 extra minutes, and I would have preferred to have, because you know how like a lot of people nowadays are like, let's get right onto the good stuff, right onto the main stuff, the action.
Yeah.
I feel like because there was that difference in direction, instead of having, here's 5 minutes of Kylo Ren doing this is what he did, this is what they did, this is how they came up. If they would have just like actually extrapolated and like went further into those things and took their time. The first act was about 20 minutes too short.
Yeah, I could see that.
That went way too quick, and I know why they did it, and I understand it, but I think that it actually hurt the film more than it helped it. Because I thought it was going to be like, oh, we'll cut down on the film's runtime. People don't want to know about all this side shit. I actually would have liked an actual, instead of these jump cuts between things jarring you into the next scene, I would have liked seeing how that panned out. It could have been the same thing, but just panned out over a longer period to get that
again. I think that kind of comes down to the mess that was the production of the trilogy as a whole.
Yeah.
That I think it was Abrams had the vision in his head and would have probably set all that stuff up in The Last Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
But then obviously didn't. And he was like, okay, I need to get to the point where I
just need to force it in.
I need to get to the point where I know where the last movie is going to start.
Yes.
And I need to do that at the start of the last movie. So he kind of tries to jump through it in the first act, and then it gets to a point where it's like, right, now the movie begins.
and that's the part and that's when the movie like felt like it was, boom, here we go now. And I would have liked it if there wasn't so much that was glossed over to get to that point.
Yeah.
I actually think I would have preferred it differently. And like I said, I understand his reasoning. He wanted to get to what he envisioned.
Yeah.
But I actually think in that one instance, it would have been better had he just shown his vision of what he was going to do and take that extra 20 minutes to do that. That would have been probably better. But on from that, all that stuff, really not that big of a deal because overall the movie was good. I really liked how they, even up to this point, Finn, John Boyega's character, was heavily implied that he was Force user. Like, he was a Force sensitive, very strongly, because everything he did was based on the Force. And what he planned on, I saw this good thing of, like, talking about, like, what he was actually going to tell Rey. People thought it might have been like, oh, I love you, or whatever, like something stereotypical, even though clearly throughout the story, everyone has mentioned that they were just really good friends.
Yeah.
There's something that said that they actually thought that what he was going to say to her was like, I'm pretty sure that I can use the Force, because he mentions the Force, he talks about it, he figures out which one's Rey just by feeling it. He knows that he needs to stay there and try to destroy that ship because he just can feel that he needs to do it.
Yeah, he's talking about the feeling.
They did a really good job of showing that he had the potential, that him getting set up that whole time of potentially being a Jedi was the fact that they did that, because I honestly believe that Abrams almost had the thought process that he was going to make Rey be the one, but then Finn find out that like he's actually has like the potential to be a Jedi too. And in the last movie, I wouldn't have been surprised if it would have been more of him.
Yeah.
In all of the ending sequence. And I liked that he was expanded upon more, because it made his character, because his character was an interesting character, and then it just went to shit in the last one. In the last one, he was just, even though he was given more to do, it actually ruined him, because it made him sound like more of a baby trying to run away from everything.
Yeah. Because again, I think it was like the idea of trying to do arcs across 3 movies is really hard.
Yeah.
And with Finn, they tried to do his arc across the 3 movies instead of giving him individual arcs per movie.
Yeah. And I think the second one fucked that up real bad.
Because if you think
him.
about an arc, been in the middle is when you'd be the most conflicted.
Yeah.
With who you're going to be and what's going to happen.
Exactly.
So it was just a whole movie of him like that. That's why, like, you know, him in the first one, great.
Exactly.
In the last one, great. In the middle,
Yeah, and so I would say I really enjoy that they did that with him.
Yeah.
Obviously, the music, the cinematography was, I think, really well done in terms of some of the shots.
The framing of some of the shots was really good. Like the bit when they're both holding the ship.
Yeah.
Just, that wide shot of Kylo and Rey, and the ship's just in between them. It's like, that was a really pretty shot.
I saw someone talk shit about how they shouldn't have made it seem like they killed Chewie, but then immediately show that they didn't. I can see what they're saying, but at the same time, would it have mattered whether we found out 15 minutes later that he wasn't actually dead or not? Because I still felt terrible when it happened, and then when I found out he wasn't, I was like, oh my god, there he is. And if I would have waited 15 minutes, I would have felt the exact same. It just changed when I felt it.
Yeah.
That didn't matter to me.
And if anything, it made the whole, you know, Rey using Force lightning thing that bit more impactful, because for a moment you thought Chewie died.
Yeah.
It's like, that made it so much heavier.
Like, I think they were complaining about the fact that right after that, they pretty much come out and say Chewie's not dead.
Yeah.
But, like, it didn't matter when we found out, because we would have found out.
Yeah.
And how else would it have been sort of, like, shown, you know what I mean? Like, it just, it it's whatever. That's a small thing, and I actually liked that. Yeah, I liked that a lot. I thought the pulling of the ship itself, it was starting to go on too long, and it was starting to make me mad. I was like, oh, it's getting a little cheesy now. It's starting to get a little cheesy because they kept it going. But then once she shot the force lightning and destroyed it, boom. I understood. Like, I felt the whole force of everything, and I was like, oh, I get the gravity of what's going on.
As a whole thing, holy crap.
Yes, as a whole thing, I was like, oh, yes. But I thought it was just going to be them playing tug of war, and then him letting it, like, and then him being a little bit stronger, and it got away.
Yeah.
And then I was going to be like, that was stupid. Like, that was like, they went on way too long with pulling it. But because it didn't do that, I was like, oh, it's awesome.
Crack of force lightning, boom.
Other things that I liked that Rey, everyone says that she's like this Mary Sue character that's so strong and no one can stop her, but that's not the case because she's been shown multiple times getting her ass kicked. The thing is, though, is she's been shown to be really strong in the Force, but in terms of her fighting ability,
she's bad.
Like, with a lightsaber, she's not great.
Yeah.
That's why you can see several times throughout the movie, she uses a blaster instead of her lightsaber. Instead of her using her lightsaber, she uses her quarterstaff.
Yeah.
She, like, you can notice every time that
she's familiar with.
Every time you can see that she might not feel like she's going to be able to take on something, doesn't use her lightsaber. She doesn't do the actual combat.
Yeah.
She actually isn't that great with, like, the hand-to-hand combat. What's strong about her is the Force. And that's fine because some people are stronger in the Force than they are combat. Like,
that's just like, that's a thing.
So she actually wasn't that powerful like people make out to seem.
No.
Unlike, some other characters that we've seen that have just, like, been absolutely ridiculous.
Like look at Anakin as a character. He was the strongest in the Force, as well as the best saber fighter in the galaxy, as well as the best pilot in the galaxy.
Yeah, like, it's one of those things where, you can say whatever you want, but it really, like, she had, like, her art, like, her differences to her. I thought that Rey was a beautiful character.
Oh yeah,
I thought that character was worked.
Especially in this one, I think she reached a whole new level with it.
Yeah,
I thought Daisy Ridley gave a really good performance for it as well.
Yeah, the Palpatine arc, I could have. I'm fine with her being a child of Palpatine, and it worked out. I think it could have at least been written better if you were going to keep it in. But I was fine. Like, I wasn't that upset about it. It made sense to me. I think it would have made more sense had it been done, like, in just a little bit different of a way.
Yeah.
But I was fine with that. I thought that was actually really interesting because I was like, oh shit, like, she's Palpatine, like, related to Palpatine. That's
the one, like, theory that most people brushed over and went,
no, there's no way.
No, it's like, she's, Obi-Wan, or she's a Skywalker, or she's related to Qui-Gon. It's like, last guy you'd expect.
I think then I'll go into just something else that I realized that I wasn't super happy about. The part where he shows that their Force, like, bond is strong, and then instead of just, like, killing, like starting to kill them with, like, Force lightning or whatever, and, like, getting their power, he does, like, a Force drain.
Yeah.
And that part to me was just, I said it to Becca, I was like, I was fine with him getting his power back by hurting them, but I thought it was really dumb that he was just sucking their life force, because I was like, well, then why doesn't everybody in any other time do that? He never once ever done that to anybody, ever shown anything. To me, that part, if he would have just been him hurting them because their bond was, like, so good now, it was, like, so light side, and because it was so strong, him, like, killing them was making him stronger. I would have liked just that, and that was, like, a small, like, writing thing that I thought would have been better, like, in terms of, like, actual, like, direction of it. But I didn't like the Force suck of, like, ooh, I'm sucking you now, I'm sucking that power. I would have liked it better if, like, him getting that power was like he was sucking their pain instead of literally sucking them.
Yeah. I think a thing I did like about that, though, was, like, when he was coming back to quote-unquote life, and it's like the last thing that came back was his eyes.
Yeah.
And he was like, he's constantly shrouded in darkness, and as he's doing it, his eyes just like, whoo.
Yeah, that was
like, yeah.
All of that was cool. Him getting his strength back, him becoming like, all that stuff, that was cool.
I was waiting for him to go unlimited power.
I like that he said, do it. But the only thing was just how that happened. I would have liked that to be changed a little bit. But other than that, like, that part was fine. I was fine with that. They showed his strength of him shooting it up, like his lightning.
Yeah.
Like, that was fine.
Which
whatever.
Really goes back to, like, old Legends Palpatine, where he was just ridiculously strong.
Yeah. Well, like, he's I mean, he learned most of his stuff from like one of the strongest Sith Lords ever, you know, Darth Plagueis. So like, it's one of those things where you can see all these different. I don't know. I think there's
lots of really good ideas that could have been executed a little bit better, but because they weren't executed perfectly, still doesn't mean it was bad.
Yeah, like the kiss thing before Kylo Ren, you know, fades into the Force. If he would have lived, I would have been fine with it because it'd be like, okay, you can see why they have a thing. But because he died, it was like, well, then we could have just lived without that part and just like them hugging or something like that. But like, why did you throw in an element of like, oh yes, like, you know, we're gonna like, this is gonna be something, and then just have him fade away? Like, I know like maybe it was to make it have more of a feeling when he died, but we already kind of knew that was gonna happen anyways. And then it also forced almost that relationship aspect a little bit harder that we just didn't need. It would have been fine without that, but that was just a small thing.
Again, that's more so. I say a lot of people probably did like that.
Yeah,
again, it's just that'd be more of a preference.
A very small thing. A very small thing with that.
But,
you know,
but while you're talking about him, something that I think the movie was consistently good with was just Kylo Ren.
Oh yeah, Kylo Ren was...
Every scene he was in, I think he was just fantastic.
Anybody that had a problem with Kylo Ren didn't understand it. Ben Solo, like the whole premise there was to me, the rise of that's the last thing is the rise of Skywalker, when you have you know, Rey come out and say like, my last name's Skywalker.
Yeah.
I didn't have a problem with that.
No.
Because I understand why. Yeah, because like, she was basically raised in terms of the Force by the only sort of parental figures, which it was Luke and Leia, right?
Who she is now is because of them.
And so she is a Skywalker because of that. The reason why I didn't like that, and I explained this to Becca as well, is because I think it took away that sort of little hidden meaning of it, like made it go away when it came up to me. The rise of Skywalker to me was like Ben,
to me,
being right because he was a child of the Skywalkers. You know what I mean?
And like, the Emperor like specifically says it, where he says, Skywalker shall fall.
Yeah,
he says the title but reversed.
Yes, and so when like, you know, you have that, if she wouldn't have gotten that, I would have been like, you know, like if she wouldn't have said that, I don't know if it changed too much just because she did. I liked that was the sort of the background image that maybe a lot of people didn't realize was that the rise of Skywalker was also probably more so about the fact that Ben was coming back to the light side. Yeah. But the part I didn't like just though from that was just the fact that her saying that almost diminished it. I would have liked it better if she would have just been like, just said like, just continued on with, I'm just Rey or something like that. But I see why they did it, and I'm fine with it. I just, it did diminish that happiness of finishing up the Ben Solo arc that I thought was so fucking good.
Oh, it was so
because
good.
It showed you got the fall, the second one you actually got the rise, and then the fall again. And then you got the rise, and it was beautiful.
Oh, it was so
it was
good.
the best character in that it's like that whole trilogy easily, other than Babu Frick.
Oh yes,
Babu Frick is good. I love Babu Frick.
Fantastic.
Yeah, he's the best.
No, definitely. I said the highlight of the movie was Kylo, 100%.
100%.
Like from as soon as Leia says Ben, and then everything after that with him was just. It was gut-wrenching in a good way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because he just sits there. He's not thinking about the fact he's just been stabbed.
No.
He's more so just like, she's gone.
Yeah.
And even Rey has that moment where it's like, oh shit.
Like, yeah, I could kill you.
But like, genuinely,
heal you. And
I'm actually sorry for you right now.
Yeah, like you're... Like,
in this moment, you're not Kylo Ren, you're Ben.
I did want to take your hand, but not... But Ben's hand.
Yeah.
Like, I want to take Ben's hand because and it showed you that's why she was struggling, was because she, you know, respected Ben and wanted Ben there to help her. She
knew that if Ben asked for it, she'd be like, yes, because I know you're a good person.
Well, because, not just because a good person, because she could feel the intention of what he wanted compared to what, like, Ben, the part of Ben was Ben wanted to control everything, to rule to like have everything be good, right? But he wanted things to be good as Kylo to control it for it to be good, which is always the downfall because your control ends up being negative because you're forcing it.
Yeah.
Whereas the Ben side of it wanted things to be good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It was just that pure innocence almost of just, I want things to be happy.
Yeah, and I want the world to be in a better place. Where Ben was like, that could be it just ending, where, you know, Kylo's was, that's me controlling it to make it end.
Yeah, and if you think about it, they say that Snoke influenced Kylo to go all evil. It technically been the Emperor. Very in character, because that's exactly what he did with Anakin.
Yeah,
he took Anakin's good intention of not wanting people to die, and used that as a way to
that's a
pull
Sith
him
trait.
down. Yeah,
I mean that's a Sith trait through and through, is attempting to get, you know, appeal to your senses of why the dark side is better. Most of the time, you don't get a dark like a Jedi come from the same as like what we saw in Fallen Order was like you don't go to the dark side because of power. Some people do, but that's not what it's about. It's about the power to save the ones you love, to love those who you want to love, to do what you need to do, to have the passion to do what you can do, and have no restrictions to stop you from doing the things that you think are right. And that's where like the big issue comes in. So I think in terms of these movies, though, I think it was this movie was a great end to it. I would say a solid 6 or 7 out of 10. For me, the reviews are, you know, you're seeing like, I think like this is like the lowest Star Wars like, score. It's like ever. 53, 54.
It's lower than the prequels.
And like, I don't agree with that. Like to be honest, like I would say that this, at the very least, you have to, if you take all the writing into account and you don't want to look at anything aside, at the very least, this movie is a 6. If you want to give it the lowest rating that you can, like it's at least a 6, which is what I would say would be, I'd watch it, right?
Yeah, it's above average. 5 being an average.
5 being like
wasn't good.
If I never watch that again, or I never think about it again, I wouldn't be upset either way or another. Whereas like a 6 is like, I enjoyed it, right? I watched it and I enjoyed it. It wasn't anything that changed me completely. And like, I would say at least that. A 7 more so for me, because I can look past the dumb things that everyone complains about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that it did what it needed to do, and I'm glad that we're going to be on the next chapter of like the Star Wars
as a whole
universe. I'm glad that we're going to be on the next chapter.
Means it's going to expand now. We're going to get a lot more
expand
new
more,
info,
which is going to be cool, and new characters, and stop reusing old characters from the past, because I'm tired of it. Like they had their time, but I'm done.
Yeah,
it was cool to see all those people again, but like, please, I'm done. Like, just let me get new shit.
Yeah, but I will say,
let me get Dio, more Dio. That's the only one I want more of.
Yeah, I will say though,
no, thank you.
The one old character thing that I really loved was all the audio cameos telling Rey to rise.
Yeah,
Anakin was in there.
That was
you
cool.
got Obi-Wan. You got Qui-Gon was in there.
Yeah,
I heard about Liam Neeson.
That
Mace
was cool.
was in there. Mace Windu, which confirms that he did in fact die.
Oh, did people think that he did die?
Yeah, there's a theory that he survived.
Oh yeah. I knew that wasn't the case.
Yeah, no.
He was dead.
Though. Yeah,
but like, that
was cool.
The movie was good.
Yeah,
I think it was good. It was good that I enjoyed it, and I liked the story behind it. And I think if you don't like it, you're wrong. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I'd give it a 7 out of 10. But then, as a whole, like an entire story from Force Awakens to Rise of Skywalker, I'd probably give it a 7.5 or an 8. Because looking at it as a whole, one big continuous story, it actually works pretty well. Like, Last Jedi knocks it a little bit, but if you look at it, whole, I think it gives it a little bit of a boost.
I would say
not big of a boost, but a little bit of a boost.
I would say that if you look at it from what the story was supposed to be, from those, I would say that the trilogy itself as like a series could have been like an 8 out of 10, for sure.
Yeah.
If you're looking at it from what it ended up being, though, because like the fragmentation from it and stuff like that, and them realizing some things shouldn't have been there, but then also that they shouldn't have used different directors, and then something should have been there.
Yeah.
I think overall for me, I'd still say it's about a 7. To be honest, I liked every single one of the movies enough that I enjoyed every single one of them. I just have issues with all of them, but I think as a series, I'd still stick with like a 7 out of 10. But I don't think it was any worse than the prequels that we got.
I would rate it higher than the prequels.
Because, to me, the best part in the prequels...
Was Union Striker?
Well, yes, but the best part of the prequels are fucking great, right?
Oh, yeah.
But the worst parts are
really
horrendous.
Bad. Yeah.
Now, in these movies, the worst parts are, that's really not that good.
Yeah.
And the best parts are really fucking great. So, like, to me, it just makes sense of, you can, and even if you look at the original Star Wars, if you're going to try and tell me that the original Star Wars had no writing issues, had no, like, continuity issues, had no, like... The thing is, like, combat in the original Star Wars sucked.
Oh, yeah.
The reason why there wasn't stronger force powers or more force power usage, the reason why there wasn't more star battles, the reason why there wasn't more lightsaber combat is because they didn't have the technology to do it good.
No.
It wasn't because it was supposed to be shitty. I think people forget that, and they say, now all it is about doing cool shit and stuff like that. But if you watch episode 6, the combat was even better, like even better there. That's where you first see Jedi flips.
Yeah.
That's where you see, like, force powers bringing shit down and smacking into people and, like, throwing whole things at stuff. At like, Luke and stuff like that. You see mind control. You see all that stuff. And that's regarded as probably one of the best movies of all time. So, like, if you're going to tell me that it's something, like, too outlandish and that they have no issues, you're wrong. The original movies had their issues. The problem is back in those days... the issues were less of an issue then, because it was different for its time.
It wasn't more so a mistake; it was more so limitations.
Exactly, and it's not like these new movies are doing something that those movies would not have done had they had the technology.
Yeah, but just when you mentioned that, something this movie did phenomenally well, and I think it's the best it's ever been, is Jedi combat.
Yeah.
I think it was so cool in the way they just kind of moved, like they glided almost.
And a great blend of like fighting, dancing, but also like hard visceral combat.
Yeah,
like it was done well.
Was really well done.
Like it was just so well done. It's listen, stop looking at these from a point of view of, are they better than the originals or not? Because these are their own.
They never will be, because the originals are held in such high regard anyways. Because of what they are.
They never will be because from that time frame. That's like, you can compare anything to anything with that. Nothing has gotten better with its sequels. If anything, it's only gotten different.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that if you took these on their own if these would have just been released for what they are now, without any of the other movies existing, it would have been a fine movie. It would have been you wouldn't have had as many people complaining as they do now.
God, no.
But because other stuff exists, that's why people are complaining.
Yeah.
And like, you can say, well, that's part of it. But no, that's not very fair, because you're comparing a movie from 40, 50 years ago now? You're comparing a movie from the 70s.
Yeah.
To and saying that it doing good then is comparable to a movie nowadays doing good. No, that doesn't work
anywhere close.
That doesn't work at all, especially for the type of movie that it was.
Yeah.
No, it's not fair to compare that, because movies from that that caliber are completely different. You know what I mean? You don't have any movie nowadays that have those sort of intensities that like of what it was able to invoke. No movie will hit that same note of what those are back in the days when cinemas would be packed for hours and hours, and people would spend their whole, like, they would go there every day of the week and watch it over and over again, because that's how good it was and what there was to do. That's not how it is nowadays.
World's a different place now.
People don't do that. So stop comparing these things to that. If you don't like the prequels, fine, I get it, because there's a lot of pointless exposition. I like the trade deal stuff. I like that backstory behind, like, their issues with not having, like, proper trade deals, the political stuff behind it.
It just wasn't done good. The best way. Look at the Clone Wars. The Clone Wars does all of the political trade stuff. There's whole episodes dedicated and it's really good.
And it's funny because that's regarded by people as the worst one of the prequels. Next to the first one with, like, the Jar Jar Binks scenes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Clone Wars I think is arguably better than the third one. Like, a lot of people fight me on that.
If I had to choose, I'd probably go with Clone Wars. Yeah.
The only part about Clone Wars, well, not the only part, but the biggest part about Clone Wars is the fucking love arc.
Yeah.
If you completely scrap that out, the movie was great.
What about sand, Cody?
I hate sand. It's so dry and coarse. It's like...
Do you know, like, that's... It's not, like, actually canon, but people consider it canon now that he's actually afraid of sand, because Vader has a nightmare in one of the comics where someone throws sand in his face. They're in, like, a little scuffle and they throw sand into his face. So everyone's like, it's now canon.
I like that.
That Darth Vader's biggest fears are fire, not being able to save the people he loves, and sand.
It's a good villain.
Confirmed here first.
But yeah, other than that though, watch the film, watch the trilogy, watch it with an unbiased opinion and just look at it from what they are for themselves. Look at it as a different point in the Star Wars universe.
If you go into it open to enjoying it, you're going to have a great time. But if you're going into it going, this won't be as good as the other ones, or will it be as good as this or that or the other, you're not going to have a good time because you're going to find issues in everything.
Of course. Go into it neutral. I went into it thinking that I went in thinking that I would enjoy it, but I would have issues. Guess what? I did enjoy it, and I had issues, and if I wouldn't have went in there thinking that there would have been issues, I probably wouldn't have had any issues. But because I knew that there was going to be issues, it was impossible for me not to. But that's only because I'm a fucking Star Wars snob. Like I love Star Wars, but I'm in it in the way that I still understand that Star Wars is Star Wars, and if the movie was actually bad, it would be the Star Wars Christmas special. And I'm not...
What are you talking about? That's the greatest thing Lucasfilms has ever graced us with.
You know, I gotta tell you, you're probably right.
I am right, and you know I'm right.
Yep, I do know you're right. And I'm also pretty sure that I'm right with saying, I think that's it for this Christmas episode.
I think we did it.
Of the Star Wars Geek Cause podcast that it is now, because we've talked about Star Wars like the last several weeks or something like that.
There's just been a lot of Star Wars. Next week, more Star Wars.
Thank you guys for joining us on this trip to a galaxy far, far away. We had a great time talking about it and ranting about why we think these things are good and why you're wrong if you think that.
In conclusion, Star Wars is good.
Yeah, I don't understand people that don't like it. Becca didn't like it until she actually watched it. That was the funniest part. She hated Star Wars. She thought it was stupid. And then she watched it, and now she's in love with Star Wars.
Yep. How it always begins.
People always hate things when they don't know it, right?
It's because they're scared.
That's why
fear leads to anger, Cody.
Most of those... That's
anger
true.
Leads to hate. And hate leads to bad Star Wars reviews.
Bad Star Wars reviews. I was trying to copy what you were going to say, but I didn't know how exactly you were going to finish it off. But yeah, so thank you guys so much for listening. We love you.
It's been a pleasure.
We appreciate you.
You're the best.
And bye-bye.
Bye.